and state emergency declarations, the Minnesota directive to residents to stay at home, and guidance about limiting person-to-person contact due to COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic. This meeting of the Adrian Public School Board is being conducted in accordance with Minnesota Statutes 13D.021, meetings by telephone or other electronic means. Due to the health pandemic, the school board determined that it is not feasible for at least one board member, the superintendent, or the school district's legal counsel to be physically present at the regular meeting location, and that it is not feasible for the public to attend this meeting at the regular meeting location due to the health pandemic. Persons may monitor this meeting from a remote location by visiting the school website. School board members are reminded to mute their microphone or phone when they are not speaking. School board members wishing to speak should unmute themselves and wait to be recognized by the chair. The chair will determine the order in which board members wishing to speak will be recognized. When recognized, the board member should unmute, speak, and then mute their speaking. All votes are being conducted by roll call. Each board member should wait until their name is called before voting. This meeting is being recorded. Access to the recording will be made available on the school district's website as soon as reasonably possible. So with that, first up is we need to approve the agenda. Any additions or changes?
Chris?
Yes.
Could I move my item 6B up to after the approval of the agenda? There might be some other budgetary things that people are going to be talking about, and I just kind of want to give everyone a snapshot ahead of those things. Is that all right?
Okay. Yep, we'll do that one right away.
Thank you.
And then there was nothing anyone wanted pulled out of the consent agenda. If not, we'll need a motion to approve the agenda with the noted change.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Les.
I'll second.
Seconded by Bob. We will roll call this here. I'm going to start with you, Les.
Aye.
Chad?
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
And Ed?
Aye.
All right, motion carries, all voting in favor. So first up, we will do our preliminary 2021 budget.
Okay, you all should have received a budget sheet in your packet. Obviously, these are soft numbers and they're changing even today. For example, on the revenue side, we added 3 open enrolled students today. So that adds just about another $19,000 on top of that number that you see on your sheet. So our revenues were estimated now around $7,035,812. On the estimated expenditure side, some of the things that you'll be hearing in terms of requests and other things tonight were not plugged in on this particular example here. So keep that in mind as you hear these things coming forward tonight. But the expenditure side, those budget numbers were based on the following assumptions: that we made the necessary adjustments to salary and benefits as from the contract settlements to both our unions. We are putting in an increase for a full-time administrator from 0.4 to 1 FTE, and you can see that number on your sheet. We're assuming a 2% increase in operational costs, fuel, transportation, utilities, supplies. Typically, we do that every year. Our long-term facilities projects, some of these were started on, some of these you guys need to act on yet or make a decision. But we did start with our paint project and the floor resurfacing. That's on there at $25,465. The paint quotes for the gym, we just got those in. Obviously, I was estimating there before we came in. We've got 2 quotes. One's at $25,000 approximately. The other's up around 52 or 3,000 or 54. I don't right off the top of my head. I'd have to look at my other sheet. The air exchanger is something that I'm going to be talking about here in a little bit and what that means on that long-term facility project. Our current capital leases, those are our leases for all of our computers and electronics, our elementary boiler, the mower, and the Bobcats. That's what our lease amounts will be for next year. That includes no new equipment. Wrestling room, mats, came in at, there's two numbers. One was a 1-inch mat. I think one was 1.25 inches. I took the larger of the two quotes for the 1.25 inches. That comes in at $19,818. And this was my idea. I think when we did the wrestling room the first time, we coded part of those mats off to community ed because it is used extensively by our community wrestling program. So it would be $9,909 to each one of those funds, one to general fund, one to community ed. There are no new curriculum or technology purchases built into the budget. So that's just kind of an assumption of where we're sitting. And you will hear some other numbers coming at you tonight. Obviously, some of these things are things you've got a little bit of time to think about, but this is what it's kind of shaping up to be. And so with you might want to change the general fund number from 6,992,583 to reflect at least the floor, the high school painting job. I don't know if you're going to prove that or not, but that would bump that up by another $10,000 or so on the expenditure side. Are there questions or comments?
This is assuming the funding formula is staying the same?
Yes, right now it is. Yep.
Yeah, Chris.
Yes.
Yeah, looking at the information that Raj provided us, I didn't have any concerns with many of them. The one concern I have is with the using the community ed funds for the wrestling room mat. I don't have any concerns with ordering the mat and getting that taken care of, but I personally don't see that using that fund would be in the best interest of that fund. I would much rather see that money going towards the community ed programs, whether it be additional athletic activities or if it be additional educational activities that we can code back to community ed. I'd like to see that money get paid for from a different source other than community ed.
When we get into Roger's report, that's item C, where we discuss that. So we'll get into that later. But just on the general
That's
budget
fine.
here. Any other questions or concerns we have on this? This preliminary one, do we need to take action on that, Roger?
No, you don't. These are just soft numbers. Like I said, I mean, the revenue projections just changed today when we had 3 new open enrollees that we signed off on. So we're still playing around with this. You generally approve your final budget. We've done it as late as June. Maybe we'll be ready in May. Once we kind of get the rest of our summer projects figured out and what you want to do on these things like the wrestling mat, if you want it all general fund or all or split. Obviously, there's some decisions you guys will have to make on some of these big ticket items coming up, and you're going to hear about some of those items in the presentations tonight. And it's you've got some time, trying to give you the time that you need to make the decisions that you want to make for next year.
Okay.
Does that budget have anything figured in for the fitness center?
Right now, no, it does not. Other than the painting in the walls that include in the paint bid.
Any other questions from anyone? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to the Building and grounds. Don't see Mike, but
I'm looking at two different agendas. I've got one where it says we've got a band request from Vanessa, or is that somewhere later in the?
I've got that on mine too.
I guess I'm looking at the.
Oh, okay. Because I moved mine up right after 2, so I think she would have been 3.
Yeah. It's not on the one that I was looking at here, the fill-in one, so I'll just look at the other one. Yeah, we'll do the Mrs. Vanderwall here.
All right. Well, good evening, everybody. Hopefully you were all able to open the documents that I sent in the email earlier today. I sent quite a few things, so I'll just start by going through a few things, and then I'll take some questions if you've got them. So the first thing that was included in your email was just a cover letter. I'm going to be asking for some new instruments today to kind of revamp the instrument supply in the band room. And so I would like to do this with Midbell Music. They are out of Sioux City, Iowa. That's who we go through for our rental instruments and then any repairs that we need. So we work with them already. And so Mike Guntrin is his name. And so he is the gentleman who actually put together all of these numbers for us. And so in his cover letter, he's just introducing himself, and he kind of states in there that some of the instruments in our inventory are 50 years old or older. He's looked at quite a few of our instruments for me as I've been talking with him about redoing some of our inventory. So he's looked at quite a few, and so that's kind of where he got that number. For example, one saxophone he looked at is so old, he said they don't even make it anymore, and so things like that. So some of our instruments are quite old. The next document on that email is actually a detailed list of the instruments that I am going to request from you. And it's pretty much in a, from top to bottom, kind of the most needed down. I mean, they're all necessary, but it's kind of the, top to bottom is kind of what we're looking for first, I guess. So I'll let you guys kind of look through that. I'll just touch on a couple things. The very number one item on there is 2 new Barry saxes. We have 2 at the school. One is broken beyond repair, and the other is playable, but it breaks very often. I've been here for 3 years now, and I've had to send it in and fix it each year. And each time we fix it, it's a couple $100. I think the most expensive fix was $300. So we have to fix it every year because it's very poor quality and could really, stand to be replaced. I have some tubas on there. I have a lot of younger students that are wanting to play tuba, but I only have one that works. And so there's really not a great way for me to get all of the kids playing those instruments without having them, things like that. So there's a lot of things on that list, but everything on that list is either replacing something that's broken or adding something that we just don't have at this moment. The third document on there, he included some lease information. We can either, if you approve everything, we could either buy everything all at once, or we could lease it for 2, 3, 4, or 5 years. And so all of the different payment amounts and everything like that are on that lease document. From our discussions, it sounds like it would be similar to like leasing buses and things like that, any large thing that is leased by the school. The fourth document, I have a lot of instruments in the band room that we no longer need because they're either broken or because we just plain don't need that many. And so he included a document for trading in some of these instruments and then getting some money back to either use for future purchases or to use for purchasing the instruments that are on my proposal. The fifth document is just some general information about school leasing of band instruments. And then I also wanted to include our current MPA budget, just so you guys can kind of see what that looks like as well. So I guess the best thing at this point would be to take some questions from all of you.
Do you know what
What
we
kind of-
are spending for repairs annually now?
I don't know the exact amount that we're spending on repairs. I do know that we've spent a few $100s already just on replacing a tuba and that Barry sax. We don't, a lot of these instruments, they're not really fixable, so I haven't been trying to repair them. There's quite a few percussion instruments on here. Some of these instruments, for example, the alto saxophones on my list, we don't have any at the school that work. And so a lot of the instruments on this list that I'm asking for new instruments aren't really repaired just because they're not used because they're unusable at this point.
Go ahead, Ed.
Ms. Vanderwall, what kind of timeline were you thinking about this? Is this something that you were going to present to us today and then give us some time to ponder it and bring it back here in a month or two, or is this something you're wanting to do today?
The timeline is truly up to you and what you guys decide on. It would be great if we had these new instruments by the next school year, because I've got a lot of kids that would really benefit from these right when school starts. But I'm fully aware that might not be super possible right now. So as quickly as we can, as quickly as time and money allows.
If I may, I did speak with the salesperson today. I questioned his lease a little bit because it looked like it graduated with each additional year, and they actually use a leasing company themselves. And I think we probably, if you did do something, I think we could probably get a better lease quote back from us than what's being represented here. We're thinking at some point of doing something. Once again, this wasn't included on the preliminary budget assumptions that I presented to you. This would be on top of that.
Any other questions?
I'd like to be able to read through it a little bit more. I came in kind of late today, so I didn't really get a chance to read all of it, but I feel like we should table it till at least next month.
And I think, like Mrs. Vanderwall talked about, there's definitely, she knows that some of this could be a phase in, or, that's why she prioritized the list too of things that she wanted to go through. This is what she needs to make her band whole. Would you agree, Mrs. Vanderwall? And what she would like to see happen with some of the instruments being, I think you quoted me, 40 plus years old, right? And so, if it can't be all at one, at least strategically looking at long-term planning and realizing the needs of the band and things going forward for a multiple year option if a single year option isn't available.
Is MPA willing to put anything towards annual payments?
At this point, no, because with the budget that we currently have set up, all of the money is already allocated. And so most of it is already in student accounts that they'll be using for the trip that we're taking to Nashville. And then we have accounts that are building for future purchases like new marching band uniforms. There's a middle school fund that is earmarked specifically for the middle school trip that we take every 3 years. So they really don't have anything to contribute at this point because it's all just student funds.
Okay.
Would it be worthwhile to get a second estimate from another supplier?
I could look into it. The main reason I chose Mid-Bell Music is because we go through them for rentals, and they have a great repair program, and they've got really great repair technicians. But I can certainly look into other companies and see what other quotes I get.
It'd be nice if we could get a better trade-in value for what we'd be getting rid of. Gotta be something in there that's usable, and they're only giving us $20 a piece.
Yeah, so unfortunately, most of the instruments on the trades list are so old that they can't do anything except scrap it for parts. And so that's why that amount is so low, just because those instruments are so old that they, a lot of them aren't even made anymore, so there are no parts to repair them for them to resell. So they would basically just be taking them off of our hands for the most part.
So I guess maybe if we could get another bid, and then Roger also maybe check with another leasing company and see what other options are available there.
I tried reaching out to the person that we lease with, and he's no longer with that. The bank actually ended their lease branch within that bank, so we'll have to find a new outfit that does leasing. I know we used another person at one point. We weren't real happy with him, but the guy that we've typically used is now retired, and he kind of took his division with him. So we got to find a new source.
Okay.
So then moving forward, I will try to get at least one more quote from another company. Would you like me to bring that back to you next month?
I think so.
Okay.
Thank you, Mrs. Vanderwall.
Thank you very much for your time.
I guess one other thing on that, if you could maybe come up with an acceptable timeline, what you would like to see right now, what could wait 1 year, what could wait 5 years, if that would be acceptable.
Okay, I can do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now on to building and grounds.
Yeah.
Do we need a motion to table that first?
Yeah, I guess we're not hurting anything by tabling the request there, so.
I'll make a
Was that
motion to table it.
Motion by Les,
Second.
seconded by Lisa. We'll roll call now. Les,
Yes, aye.
Chad,
Aye.
Lisa,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
Ed.
Aye.
All right, motion to table carries unanimously. Now on to buildings and grounds.
Went down and looked at the gym painting project that's underway now. They're actually getting the logo down in the court today, and looks like that's coming along at a nice pace, and it'll be beautiful when it's done. The main item that I have, and this was included on that budget assumption, there's a large air handling exchange unit in one of our mechanical rooms at the middle school, high school. The filters in that particular unit have not been replaced since 2004. And what that exchange unit does is it takes the cold outside air, it mixes it with the warm air that's coming back from the heat pumps, and it converts it to about a temperature of 55 degrees, and then it's circulated back through the building, reheated and circulated. And so it's pulling the fresh air in and exchanging with the old warm air, and then reheating the cold air that's coming in. Anyway, that unit, it fills up that almost that entire mechanical room. Someday, if you ever want to go down and take a look at it, it's a beast. But that unit has 3 sets of 4 of these filters that are about 3 by 3, and they look like really dense, kind of tightly packed, almost cardboard. And that's where the air's coming in, and the warm air is coming in, and it's being reprocessed. And then it's surrounded, and there's 3 bins of those things, and then they're surrounded by a series of 16 smaller filters that filter the air first. Well, the big box filters are the ones that have kind of reached the end of their life cycle, And what we started noticing happening is we're getting back pressure in the building, and some of that back pressure is resulting in the boilers not running as efficient as they should. And we also get a bit of a diesel or a fuel oil smell in our boiler room. And so Johnson Controls is recommending that those things be replaced. It's a high dollar item. They're $20,000 to replace that series of filters. But as they said, we probably got 5 years longer out of them than we maybe should have. Those things do kind of have a life cycle, and their feeling is that they have reached the end of that. So we've got this quote here from Johnson Controls to replace those things. There's a possibility that we might be able to figure out something where maybe we could order direct and save a little bit of money. But if we can't, it would be $20,000. That quote there is before you. That is something that we could push off onto next year's budget. But, based on what's being recommended, and I went down and looked at them, those big things, they said maybe we could run water through them. That's never been done. We don't know for sure if they're going to work, if that'll buy any time or not. But I would say that if they've reached the life cycle, that this would be something that should be put on next year's budget as a maintenance item and be replaced.
Is that 20,000 just for the filters, Roger, or is that included the installation?
That's filters and installation.
Okay.
Furnish and perform the work below for a net price. So.
Okay.
How long are new ones expected to last?
Well, they said they thought these things would only go about 10 years, and we got 16 out of them. So they must have been fairly well cleaned. They're supposed to be vacuumed each year and, taken out. And of course, the pre-filters need to be changed on a regular basis. I think their life expectancy is about 10 years, but we got 16 out of this last batch.
Any other questions? Anybody want to make a motion to replace these on next year's budget?
I'll make that motion.
So the motion is in front of us from Ed,
I'll second.
seconded by Bob. Roll call: Les,
Aye.
Chad,
Aye.
Lisa,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
Ed.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. All right, next item, Roger.
I think you're on to your consent agenda items now.
That was it for buildings and ground then?
Yeah, yep, I really have nothing else now.
All right. Consent agenda. Anybody wants to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Les,
Aye. Our second.
seconded by Chad. We'll roll call: Les,
Aye.
Chad,
Aye.
Lisa,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
Ed.
Aye.
Consent agenda approved unanimously. And now principal and deans.
All right.
Any of you guys want to get started?
Yep, sorry. I was trying to look at the agenda and unmute at the same time. Just wanted to let you know, as you saw, our new fax position has been filled. That was on your consent agenda. An update on distance learning. I think Mr. Shetler would agree that things have gone as well as we possibly thought they could over the past 3 weeks. We've answered a lot of questions. We've delivered a large amount of meals, and done childcare every day since it started, and things seem to be going in a very positive direction. Randy?
Yeah, things have went about as well as we could possibly imagine. A lot of our time is spent now contacting students that maybe aren't taking things as seriously as they should be, to making sure we reach out and try and reach everybody we possibly can. We're using our paraprofessionals to do daily check-ins with some of those students that are struggling to log in and maybe more technologically challenged, and they're struggling with those challenges that are faced now. And their parents are challenged with it too, so the parents are helping out in those aspects and doing daily check-ins. The childcare thing, we've had 2 families most of the time. The meals, we're pumping out over 200 now, I believe. That just went up this week too, by quite a few. So we're handing bus companies helping with some of their drivers, and our pairs are going those routes. And Sean's delivering a ton of them in town every day. So we kind of have a group effort there to get everything accomplished. The PTO, at the elementary, they wanted to go to utilizing a seesaw platform, which has went really smooth actually for not having any training on it. And PTO contributed to purchase that for us this year. So we could utilize this through this year and the rest of next year.
On the technology update, we wanted to let you know that we did loan out 119 Chromebooks to families who needed them. We've only had 1 injured Chromebook so far in this process, and they've been out for a little over 3 weeks. So, and that was 2.
Yep.
2. Neither of them were huge major issues as we go through it. And then the second thing under technology is a document that you've had access to at purchases for next year. You have access to it all the time, but just wanted to, again, share it with you where we are with the technology. You know, we've talked for a long time about moving forward. That was one of our goals of our referendum, to move forward with the one-to-one, at least the middle and high school level, and looking at those things. At the same time, I'm not 100% willing to know where we are right now, just because we have 119 devices out, and I would really like to see how those devices come back to us. Yet at the same time, we know that if we don't put an order in, probably, would you say early June, Dean, there's very little chance we'll get them on time? Or what would you say is the time frame to get them and get them in working order by the start of the school year?
I would say that would be pushing it. Mm-hmm.
So that kind of puts things on a time frame for you as well. But do you have access to that document, or do you want me to screen share, or? Chris, I can't hear you.
I should probably mute myself. Looking at this document, you have a priority list for 1819 and 1920. And then the first one is a summary there. What is our priority list for right now?
Well, with everything that's happened in the last few weeks, I wasn't exactly sure where that puts us for priority, but it would seem like things will settle down before next school year, so the priority list will probably be similar. As Kate was indicating, Chromebooks need to be pretty high on that priority list, and we're not sure what that number will be based on what's out there and how it'll come back. But that part is certainly a priority. The first part of the document really covers a lot of what we already do, and it's just recurring with software commitments and things that have been in place quite a while. I did add a new section into that area that kind of lists out as many of the things that I could recall that we've actually brought in just for this distance learning, and whether or not those items continue on next year, because of course most of them are free licensing while this is going on, but then they'll turn into a paid licensing scenario. Some may be necessary in the future, some are directions we had planned on going eventually anyway, and some may fall by the wayside. So that's an area of priority that we need to take a look at and address how that looks. I've put pricing in where I could. Smart boards were one of the items that were on the list. I think I had 5 of them in to replace in areas where we really need to replace the actual smart boards we've had for a long time that are obsolete with the smart panels. So that number's in there. I would consider that a priority. And the other priority that I would say we have would be replacement of the iPads from the iPad 2 that's obsolete now and unable to run most of the software teachers need to run, with new ones that can do those jobs for the lower grade levels where they're useful.
They work for about one app. That's about all they can run on those iPads. I think they're just using it for Epic. And that's about the extent of it. So that's all they're using it for. Because that's all they work for that they found.
Correct. Yep, they're obsolete. They've been left behind.
So that's 120 iPads
Right.
that we need.
And I apologize for the priority list not being current. I actually thought it was. As you peruse this list from time to time, you'll see that'll be there.
Okay. For the smart panels, what sort of lead time do you need on them?
Lead time for a lot of the electronics is being pushed out because manufacturing isn't happening. So I haven't checked I haven't checked since this COVID-19 thing hit us to see whether or not that's been pushed out for those. I would guess that if we're able to commit to those by July, preferably by June, we should have them and be able to get them installed. It's not that many. It's really only 5 of them at this point. And I've listed out where those 5 go.
Mm-hmm.
But that'll be the future ongoing as we move forward in year to year will be to take a few of them and replace those smart boards with the smart panels. It's really the only option that's out there anymore.
Once again, I'm just going to interject that, these numbers weren't included on those budget assumptions, other than the first probably $45,000, which are kind of reoccurring things. But the iPads and the Smart Vision panels, and then the Bell system, those 3 items aren't included in those budget assumptions that I gave you tonight earlier. All told, those come up to about $78,344 the way it looks. And once again, you would have the option of doing some lease purchasing. We've done that quite a bit with our computer technology in recent years. Once again, your current leases, all things included, around $117,000 a year right now.
the Bell system is one of those things that we've talked about, but we've tried to write some grants for that because it's a safety issue as well. So I think that's definitely, if there's some, now I got to be really honest, I'm not so sure that there's going to be a lot of places for grants along those lines through this summer, just because of so much of the funding sources being eaten up by different things. But that's something we can continue to try to work for, is to find a safety grant to cover the cost of that. And then the one we did last time, it was just luck of the draw. You were given a random lottery number, and then they chose those. We didn't win. It's definitely going to be a need someday when it goes down, but it's probably one another. As long as we don't mess with it too much, we've been okay so far, right, Dean?
Correct. I'm not sure what keeps that old laptop moving, but as long as, like you said, we don't do much with it, it's been okay so far.
It's kind of a fuzzy world to live in, though, because once we don't have, like right now, it's not ringing so much, so it doesn't matter, but I'm hoping in early September it'll start ringing again, so.
And the biggest problem is, yes, it's a laptop that controls it, that allows us to input different data, different bell schedules and whatnot. But that laptop is old enough that couldn't find one to replace it, and we can't run a newer operating system for it. So that one goes. It's going to be challenging to come up with something that can actually do that job.
I'm going to suggest we look at a leasing option for iPads and Chromebooks and panels. If anybody else has any thoughts?
Sounds good to me, Chris.
Yeah, I'm good with it.
I'm good.
And Kate, keep talking nice to that Bell system.
Yeah, I talk very nice to it every day.
What is the cost on replacing that Bell system again?
26,000. It was kind of right. I'm pretty sure that was.
Yep.
When we ran that quote for that grant, it was surprising how much the new Bell system would cost.
I think the last time that Bell system was replaced was, I think Mr. Damagala, when he was going out, about in 2000 or 2001, I think is when it was last upgraded. So
She's a dinosaur.
The computer that runs it, I think, is like a 93 or a 94 or something, right? So I think
Right.
it might even be a little bit older than that. So, and it's being run off a computer from 1994. So that's almost as long as I've been out of high school. So that is a long time.
I think we should at least take a look at what it looked like in a lease with that, adding that Bell system in there too. I mean, maybe we can do it with the Bell system, show us with the Bell system, and show us without the Bell system, and let's at least take a look at it.
Do we need to get an updated bid on that Bell system then, Kate? I think the note on here says that it was a bid from last year.
Correct.
So Dean, if you want to make that contact and find out what that number would be.
I will do that.
Thank you.
Is this another one that it would be? Would it be worthwhile finding another system, or is this there's one and only one?
When we did, I see Dean was going to go too. When we did this, we kind of worked with the company that had it, but there's a very limited number of companies that put things like this together. Would you agree, Dean?
I would say you have two. And the second one, that's really not their focus. They're really looking at emergency messaging over the pagers and other functions. And oh, by the way, it will do the bells as well. So there is very limited, but we can certainly do some exploration out there.
Okay. All right.
All right, Memorial Garden cleanup. I know someone talked with Randy as well, but we have had some parents who have contacted us about the idea of taking the Memorial Garden out in front of the high school and them doing some cleanup and replacement of plants and things. Randy, if you want to talk a little bit about the discussion you had.
Yeah, that was their thought, that they didn't want it to be any cost to the district. They just wanted to clean things up out there and maybe replace some plants and kind of make it look nice. But there was a group of parents that brought that up and wondered if it would be okay if they did that, I guess. But they reiterated that it would be at no cost to the district. They would take care of me and I'd have to go out there, so we'd probably have to
Accept it as a donation.
donate it or whatever. But they wanted to make sure that was okay if they.
With that, we talked about, Randy and I talked about if there's a need to put some parameters on the memorials and things that we put out there.
Like size wise, so somebody doesn't come and put something really big in there that, then the next person tries to outdo whoever. But
I do know we had a conversation last fall with some classmates and things talking about a memorial, and it's hard, but we don't want a massive stone out there. That would definitely change the look of what that is, and it could almost be conceived as something else. I mean, it's really important to make sure that we kind of maintain the integrity of all the other people as well who have put stones out there and things like that. So trying to keep it at a consistent level.
I think we can leave that up to your discretion, and if it gets to a point where you're not comfortable approving anything, then you can come to us. That's kind of what I'm thinking. If anybody else has any thoughts?
I'll agree with you.
Sounds good.
I'd say just for Kate and Randy, if you do want something in writing, feel free to propose something to us. But if you feel free with just using best discretion as what they said, I'd say move forward that way. But we give you the option to put something in writing if you'd like.
How do we want to do the donation part? Like they're talking about replacing some of the plants and the flowers and all of those things. Is it okay for them just to do that, or should we accept that? Do we want them to try and put a dollar amount on it, or can they just put refresh the Memorial Garden?
Just refresh the Memorial Garden sounds good.
Okay.
Yep, I agree.
Sounds good.
thank you.
The next thing is graduation options and plans. Right now, we have been putting together some things. The banner project that was put together by some senior parents was able to raise enough money to allow us to. We were looking at finding funds to buy disposable, or that's probably individual caps and gowns this year. Having just spent $10,000 on all those choir robes, we were a little nervous about sending them out and not being sure with a way to reclaim them and keep them safe the way we typically have. There was enough funds raised through that project that's going into the senior account, and those parents have used it and agreed to allow us to move forward with going through Jostens to purchase caps and gowns for the seniors for this year, that way the handout process will be cleaner, safer, and they'll be theirs. We won't have to reclaim them, clean them, and try to be careful with things that have been in other people's houses and things. So that's one of the things we would like to do. That money went into the senior activity account today, so it's there for us to use that way. So that's one of the first things we're going to do. Other ideas that we have for graduation, maintaining that May 2nd date, I think has some real interest, even though knowing that a full graduation would probably need to move out later into the summer. One of the things I've been trying to put together is a graduation where on the 22nd we would reserve 45 of the parking spots around the grassy area outside here. Gather preferably 45 pickups, one for each senior in their spot, and start with a small speech and information here, and then do a parade down Main Street where at the fire hall, the board members were there as I read their names, and we took turns sanitizing between each, of course. That's why we'd probably need more than 2 board members. Handing out the diplomas to the kids as the pickup drove by and went down the street just a couple blocks. So it would probably just be a 4-block parade to keep it shorter, because we'd have to close down the major highway again. And so using that, and then gathering again on the grassy space, if that's allowable at that time. The parents would be asked to stay in their vehicles along Main Street and along the parade route. We would hire a photographer to take pictures as the seniors received their diplomas, and try to maybe display it on the big screen that's used for the campgrounds and things like that as they go through, to do something on that May 22nd, and then have a more traditional graduation ceremony later in the summer if at all possible. Thoughts on that?
Just one question, Kate. Are the parents are driving the vehicles, the pickups with the kids in the back? Is that the thought?
I would say we would not necessarily the parents drive the vehicle, because I think parents will want to see it, but it would be an adult would have to drive it, just like we do for homecoming or other things. Again, it would be a true parade, slow route. There's, when you watch the Christmas in July and things, there's often people in the back of pickups and things, so we would use that. But they'd be wearing their caps and gowns, go through the process.
Just a responsible adult driving the vehicle, though, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, we don't want Billy Bob out there ripping up Main Street, so.
Right.
Do we have any concerns with crowds outside of the, let's say, parents and students? Are we going to have concerns with having additional people there wanting to watch and bringing too many people close together in that situation?
I think that's why we would have to ask them to, stay in their vehicles possibly, or stay near their vehicles, maintain social distancing. A lot will also depend on what the rules are on May 22nd. If they are still at that point where a gathering of, is not allowable, then that would alter it without a doubt. If they've started to be mildly relaxed at that point, again, we would ask them to maintain social distancing and go through the process. Outdoor open space is the goal, though, to not have them in a single building.
And then would you talk to the fire department or Sean on making sure the building is available and
Absolutely.
usable, and not blocking anything for emergency response if necessary?
Right. And of course, if the weather isn't great, it won't work, because I think the only way to do it at this point is going to be an outdoor. Although we have not heard, but the governor did say today that he does expect to make his decision on the school setting this week. So.
Oh, that sounds good to me.
Like I said, I just kind of wanted to make sure you were all on the same page and know that I think it's, like I said, important to maintain the May 22nd date and do something, if at all possible, knowing that it would have to be an outdoor. If that isn't possible, a local district is doing a thing where right now, one at a time, they're having a graduate come in, put on their cap and gown, and receive their diplomas in a video, and then they're going to FaceTime it. So if after what we hear in the next week or two, shows that that's not going to be a possibility to do it with parade style, we would start looking at something like that one at a time with time and all of those things. So, all right. Prom is kind of on the same way. A lot of feedback from kids. If we can have it in the summer, we're definitely planning to try and set a date, understanding that we're going to pick a date, and that's going to be the prom date. And we're never going to, if social distancing restrictions are lifted, families are going to create their own plans, and prom is a choice. So it would have to be one of the choices that they made. They can choose to participate or not, but we would like to offer the opportunity. With the new gym floor, I find it very unlikely that we would host prom in the new gym, on the new gym floor. So location might be something we'll also have to consider once we think about when we're going to have that, if we're able to. I've also told the kids, August 1st to August 15th are kind of the times when, if we haven't had them by that point, we won't have them, because the seniors will be moving on to their next story in their lives at that point. So, but at this point, we'll try to have it throughout the summer sometime.
Kindergarten roundup and preschool registration are being done via mail. Right now, I think that Monday, Wednesday, Friday morning preschool class is virtually full. So now we're moving to the afternoon class. First come, first serve on the way that those things come back to us. Not ideal, but it has to work in the situation that we're in.
Above kindergarten numbers.
They're going to be around about 45.
Spring sports update. The Minnesota State High School League has put together, they call it a lead meeting, where it's with athletic directors and the employees at MSHSL. It's every Thursday. So far, they're still planning on having a season. It's how they describe it, but they're waiting on word from the governor. So, yeah, I don't know what to tell you. We're cautiously optimistic, I guess I would say. Then my next one, spring coaches pay. I sent an email late this afternoon from our State High School League, or not State High School League, our Coaches Association, for all the high school coaches regarding spring coaches pay, and it's kind of their letter advocating for that. I have had a lot of coaches ask me what it's going to be, so if I could just get a ruling or something to go back with them. In that letter, also in that email, at the bottom there was a PDF that had a lot of schools, what they're going to do, and it looks like a lot of them are going to pay full, with a couple exceptions.
And I believe the recommendations that have come to us is, especially if it was part of their contract or their notice of assignment, that the plan would be to pay people for that coaching assignment. Mr. Graff, I think that's what we talked about as well, right?
Yeah, we had, and I think in colleagues I visited with, if it's on their assignment, I think their thought is that they're going to move forward with payment of it. Obviously on the flip side of it, if they don't perform the service for whatever reason why, I suppose you could make the argument that it really shouldn't be compensated, even if it's not their fault. So there's two sides to every coin, but this was one of those rare situations, we hope, and I guess I would be in the camp more to think that it would make sense to honor what our obligation was going to be to them, because this was really beyond their control, anyone's control. Perhaps maybe we'll get some directive on that from the MDE regarding some of those things. Those are questions yet that I think are circulating out in a lot of districts. So
Hey Joe, can you tell me, are coaches doing anything with being in contact with kids?
Yeah, I know that. Well, for baseball, we have Google Classroom where I've just basically been posting videos of drills that they can do. I know for track, they've been doing day workouts through a Google Classroom, something like that. I'm not sure about softball and golf, but yeah, we're definitely, I mean, as much as we can, trying to be there for them, I guess. Kind of a distant learning thing, too. So,
Internet coaching?
yeah, that's about right.
I did speak with Terry Morrow at MSBA, just asked him what his recommendation or what other districts are doing, and he said for the most part, districts are paying staff members the full amount that was in their contracts. Some of them that aren't being paid are if the person isn't a staff member and they're not doing any of these Google Classrooms or putting the other work out, they're doing nothing that's not being paid. But that was kind of the directive I got from Terry.
We'd have a golf coach who's not a staff member. And then of course the Ellsworth coaches, but they're staff members there. That Judy Hoosman and Ethan Van Briesen. But I believe everyone else is a staff member.
I think there's one more softball who is not.
Oh yeah. One's junior high softball.
Does anybody have any thoughts or questions on this one?
Nothing here.
Excuse me, Chris, did you see Gary? I think Gary raised his finger. He's MSBA rep. Maybe he's got something to say.
Yes, I'm sorry. I don't mean to interject too much here, but yeah, as far as staff is concerned, we've went through this numerous times, and it really boils down to the contract. And as you start dealing with hiring your fall coaches, we are suggesting that you put in to those contracts a provision for either prorating it if part of the season is canceled, or even severing everything if nothing takes place, to make sure that that's covered, because we don't know what's going to happen in the fall again. So make sure you look at it. But it really boils down to your current contract language. If you don't have an out on it, then we're saying just you need to follow through and pay it. So.
Yeah, I don't believe there's any. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Roger.
I don't. I looked at our contract. There's nothing in there that would indicate that we shouldn't pay it. Obviously this is so unusual, but I hear what Gary's saying. That probably makes good sense. To be thinking along those lines.
And nobody at this point ever anticipated this.
No.
So there isn't a contract that's got it.
No.
So, but we're suggesting for the future.
I guess if we're meeting the obligations of our contracts, we don't really need a motion to do what we're already doing. So we just move forward with the way we are, unless somebody objects to it. All right. Looks like
So I can
Yeah,
tell
go
them that when they ask me that they will get paid, how about the ones that aren't on staff?
they are under contract, and we would really like them to try and work with the kids as much as possible.
Okay. Okay, then the next one, Kate, you wanna talk about it? Otherwise, I can. Activity fees, if they do end up canceling the season. Kate, do you have any thoughts?
Deb just talked to me today about if we would do typically what maybe has been done if the student doesn't end up participating, is we move it into their lunch account if at all possible, or offer refunds. So she was just looking for some clear guidance on how to handle that.
I think for the younger kids too, would it be an option to roll it over to next year or not?
I think that would be a very good idea.
And then I don't know how the family cap, how that would work too.
Do you think it's worth talking to Deb and Sarah and see what would be the most seamless route for what our auditors would like to see, whether it be all refund or a rollover?
Yeah.
And just let them decide with your cooperation.
Yeah.
I think they're just really looking, at least I know in talking with Deb today, she has lots of options of how she could do it. She just wants to know how should she do it. And that's what so if you're willing to let them have some look at what would be easiest, I think that would be, and then we, once we hear final information, we would make sure we communicate that to the parents.
I'm just going to throw something out. It's something that I talked with Kate and Randy about at one point. I said, it's basically about this whole idea with these activity fees for kids. And we know that for some families, it is a bit of a struggle. We do have some ways of kind of helping them. But, I've always kind of in the back of my mind thought that maybe there's a way that we could eliminate these fees altogether for these kids. And instead of having separate sport groups running the concession stands and things of that nature, that if we were to waive the fees and have the parent groups step up and agree to man those concession stands, and that the concessions then would come back for the most part to the general fund to cover some of those sports fees and or be dollars used towards other additional activities, whether it's uniforms or whatever, figure out a way that equitably divide that. But part of that, the concession fee, would, with the parents working and stuff, was really could cover the kids without anything out of pocket for parents. We've never done it before. It's just something I've been thinking about. I kind of dropped it on Kate and Randy, I think, about a month or so back. And I don't know if now's the time to bring that up, but since it's just an idea.
I think you'd get a lot of pushback. Concessions is pretty much your winter gym sports. The vast majority of that's going to be your basketball. And then that money would divide it out.
One of the things we talked about with that is the inequity in the student activity accounts because of that. So
we do have big, it's not issues, but the basketball, like you said, most of the concessions is basketball. I'd say a good portion of it, and their accounts are consistently higher than
significantly higher.
All other sports. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you look at your one sheet there, I think the student accounts are listed and what they have in them at that particular point. But at that point, it could kind of be rolled back into the school. It could go to things, like helping to cover the cost of maybe putting in your new gym floor, maybe upgrading your fitness center, as an offset for the activity fees. Because I suppose the activity fees, I'm not sure what we collect right off the top of my head. I think it's around $5,000 to $6,000 a year is what we collect in our activity fees, and which is really kind of a pittance when you look at we spend over 100 and some thousand on all our activities. So yeah, I know people they did get some pushback, but it would take a little bit of time and exploring. You'd probably have to. Obviously, I'm not going to be here for this, but I think if you put together a package and had it kind of clearly outlined in terms of what the benefits would be to the students and the families and how those funds could be used in kind of an equitable fashion, I think you might be able to get away from this idea of having to charge kids activity fees in the future. And but it would take cooperation amongst all those sports. There's always kind of been this is mine and I'm using it for my thing. And it'd be kind of neat if there's a way that we could say, hey, we've got, there's an inequity in here. We can kind of use it for a little bit of everything, So that's just my thought.
I'm sorry. Another thing to consider is that we had in the plans to sit down with Ellsworth over the summer and kind of do some planning to make sure that we have equitable, if whatever the fees are, and to try to even some things out across the two schools to make sure that we are, doing things in a more consistent manner in both schools. So it would that would be a really good time to start looking at stuff like that.
One of my fears with this is if we did it that way, and then 10 years from now, somebody looks at it when we're not doing this anymore and decides we need to implement activity fees, since every other school around us has them. I think, Ed, you were talking.
Well, I was going to suggest, this is probably something that's going to take time to put together information and numbers, and I'd suggest that maybe after July 1st we put together a workshop and have this as one of the items to discuss. But that's just a thought.
Mm-hmm. I guess going back to the original question with the refunding for the spring season, are you satisfied with what to tell Deb on that, or?
Yep.
Yeah.
We've answered that question? Okay. Any other discussion on activity fees? All right. Now on to Roger.
Oops, sorry, I thought I was talking into a blank mic. I thought there was one more item on Joe's thing, the trap shooting lettering. Did we talk about that?
No, I took that off. I have to do a little more. I did some research on it, and I need a little more time.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay. Yep. So I guess I'm up, huh? All right. Okay, my first item is item A. We need to just approve a fund transfer of our Food for Thought funds. Those dollars come into the general fund, and then as I understand, they have to be moved out of the general fund into Fund 2, and from there they can be distributed to the past due lunch account. So we need to approve that transfer of $37.50 from Fund 1.
I'll motion.
Motion from Lisa.
I'll second.
Seconded by Bob. We'll roll call Les.
Aye.
Chad.
Aye.
Lisa.
Aye.
Bob.
Aye.
Ed. Aye. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, if you look back at the budget sheet I gave, there was a wrestling mat on there, and what's one of the items here, we had two quotes come back from that. One was for a 1-inch mat, that was $18,189. This is for the wrestling room. And the other was the better quality mat at 1 1/4 at $19,818. So we've got two quotes, and it's to redo the wrestling room mats. And as I pointed out, that could possibly be split. That would be up to the board to decide if they wanted that all in the general fund, or could be split out probably legitimately as a community ed expenditure. I know Ed had some objection to that, but I guess it's open for you guys to talk about this.
I guess first, Roger, when you have your estimate on the budget, did you have 9,000 coming out of general and 9,000 coming out of community ed?
That's how I constructed that budget assumption page. Yes.
And what is our current Fund 3 balance?
Or Fund 2?
Or Fund 2?
Typically in there, we're good every year. We typically have extra dollars. We don't expend. We just don't have enough programming to do that, and we get more revenue in than really we do on the programming side that goes out. I think in the past, besides the wrestling room, when we set up the weight room, because that was a community fitness center, I know we used funds out of community ed to put that thing together at that particular point. And I know you're thinking about the fitness center again and equipment in there, and whether that continues to be a community-based thing or a school-based thing. That would be possibly another way you could dip into your community ed fund. But hope that answers your question.
Chris, I know I'd be repeating myself, but as Roger just kind of said, that our programming isn't there. I guess looking at what we have available for funds, I'd much rather see the community funds go to additional programming than to pay for the wrestling mats. And I'm not opposed to getting the mats. I'm concerned with the use of the community ed funds for it.
Any other thoughts?
Have we looked at into any other funding for that wrestling room mat if we were concerned with the cost? Are there additional funds from the wrestling programs or other granting opportunities for health and safety?
I don't want to speak for the wrestling club, but I do know that 2 of their 3 tournaments that they hold throughout the year were canceled this year. Thanksgiving one because of snow, and then the March one because of COVID. So I don't know what their balance is, but I'm doubting that there's much there.
Yeah, all our health and safety funds go towards our nurse, and we don't get a lot of dollars there. It's not even enough to cover the full nurse's salary for that. So I guess the decision you guys have before you, whether or not you want to replace wrestling mats and how you want them paid for.
Again, don't mean to put this on you, Chris, but I have no one in wrestling, obviously. I mean, is this a need this year? And if so, what do we have for thicknesses for the mats right now? Are they 1.25 inches or are they inch?
They're the 1.25 inches. The mats
about the mats. They're if you go in the wrestling room, they're just kind of peeling off the top. I think that is a need, if you're asking me.
The concern there is the coating on the top is starting to crack, and the foam is opening. And with this year, there were more skin issues than there has been in the past, and that is just one source of. It's a place where bacteria and fungus can grow, and it's hard to get into that mat and disinfect it.
Agreed.
That mat, I do believe, I don't know, maybe you know this, Randy, but I believe it was resurfaced when, I think it was resurfaced in '96 and then resurfaced again when the wrestling room was built, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I don't remember anything ever being done to it.
Okay, then the last time that mat was done was 1996.
So nothing's been done to it since I've been here, and that's when they put I think it's the original mat from that room.
Well, the original The original mat for that room is the competition mat. That was ordered to fit in there. Then they were going to use this one to just save on the other mat, and it's been in there ever since.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that one's about 25 years old. So
it's not a possibility to use the competition mat for in the wrestling room and only purchase one new mat?
it would be one new mat.
Oh, okay.
It's not purchasing two new mats. It's just one.
How much life does the competition mat have?
That's in great shape. That rack that Bruce Loosebrook made and donated has done wonders to save that thing. They've done a great job of taking care of that.
That rack might need a little TLC though from somebody, as the cables are frayed bad, and occasionally when you're lifting the mats, they catch some of the bolts that are used to attach to motors, which is hard on that mat. So that's one thing the janitors probably should look into, taking care of that a little bit, especially with the cables being frayed the way they are.
And again, that mat, it's not hard. It's not a safety issue per se. It still works. It's something that probably should have been replaced a couple years ago, just because the way that covering is cracking on it. Personally, I'm not the most comfortable spending $20,000 right now when we're looking at our budget as tight as it is. It should be done, but is this the right time? I don't know.
Again, is this something we could look at closer to, let's say, the beginning of the school year?
Say that again, Ed.
I'm sorry about that. Is that something that we could possibly consider discussing in 4, 5, 6 months prior to the wrestling season?
Well, I think in terms of budget planning, if you're thinking about it for next year, that would be fine. But moving forward for next year's budget, I guess we need to have an idea. We're going to make that big expenditure this coming year, whether we do it sooner than later. Otherwise, I think you got to push it off to next year if you come back and revisit this at another time.
It's something that we got to do either this year or next year, I'd say. If that's what you're wondering.
I feel like we should hold off another year.
I would agree with Lisa, especially if we can try to find some supplemental funding to go along with it.
What are you suggesting for supplemental funding?
I'm just curious, what we might be able to come up with. Is there fundraising? Is there a grant opportunity that might come up? I know Kate had mentioned that some of the grants may be drying up at this point in time due to our statewide and national-wide financial situation. But is there other opportunities we can look for over the next year, grant-wise? I can't say that there would be, but
there aren't anything when it comes to wrestling mats. I know they've done some intercity wrestling programs have put things out trying to get mats, and schools will donate old ones to them. I know there's not any sort of grant program for for a mat or anything. Same way, we're not getting a grant to redo the gym floor surface. Same type of thing.
One thing is that we do have a little bit of money coming into community ed. We did one of the Renee was telling me about this afternoon. That what would check come in for, was it $2,000 earmarked towards community ed and summer rec? Is that correct, Renee? Did I see you shake your head? Yes, correct. Okay. So there is a little bit of extra funding that came in that way towards summer rec. I know we've run some wrestling camps in there in the summertime and stuff like that. So there is a little bit of dollars that could sit there till next year too. It's not going anywhere. It's not spent.
I guess first off, what are everyone's thoughts on running community ed funds for Matt? Les?
I'm okay either way.
Chad or Lisa?
I'm not opposed to using some of it, but I don't know if I would want to use the full 9,000. I'm with Ed on using it for other programs with the community ed fund. You know, a few thousand maybe, but not the full 9.
I'm okay using some of it too. I mean, we do let the youth wrestling club, our youth kids, use it, so I'd be all right using some community ed money to fund that.
Okay. I guess if nobody wants to put a motion forward to purchase that, kind of dying on the table here, so move on to the paint quotes.
Roger, you're muted.
Sorry about that, folks. Yeah, you've got 2 quotes there before you on your page. You can see that was for painting the walls in the lobby areas and the fitness center, and also the air handling apparatus in the gym that's flaking so bad. So you've got 2 quotes there before you for that, and I guess it's up to you if you want to act on either one of those.
Any thoughts here?
I think people will definitely be looking at the floor more this year than they ever have been, but so
Keep their heads down. We're good to wait another year.
keep their heads down.
I definitely think Gary's is more appealing, price wise.
That one says designated areas. That's the same gym and fitness center. Concession lobby.
Yep.
And entry.
Yeah, Renee took both of them down and showed them the areas that we were thinking about.
Okay.
When they came in. That's correct, right, Renee? Okay, thank you.
Any thoughts? Do we want to do this now, or again? I guess I'll say I think with our technology that we are tabling right now, I'd rather put the money towards that than paint at this time, personally. I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts.
I agree.
I agree as well. This is cosmetic, not anything needed as of right now. No safety concerns, nothing like that. It's just mainly an eyesore.
Yeah, would be nice, but not necessary.
Yep. And I agreed with Kate. I think a lot of people would be staring at the floor more so than the ceiling. So.
And it looks good, and it's not even done yet, so it's going to be amazing.
I'm excited to see it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Sounds like we have another one dying on the table here. So we'll move on to item E.
Last item is some people came forward and would like to sponsor a scholarship in Logan Rogers' name, and typically these are
Landon.
approved by the board. And the district doesn't provide the funds, but those interested in offering a scholarship, and it would go to basically an ag student who's pursuing some sort of a ag career, either through a 4-year or 2-year school. So, would like approval for these folks to move forward with offering this scholarship.
All right. Motion from Lisa.
I'll second.
Seconded by Bob. Les.
Aye.
Chad.
Aye.
Lisa.
Aye.
Bob.
Aye.
Ed.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. And I believe that's it for you, Roger.
Okay, thank you.
And we lost Gary.
Weird.
He stepped away at just the right time. I guess I will, while we're waiting for him, start out here on the superintendent's search. Just remind everyone that these applicants contain private data. The names of the applicants that are selected to be interviewed will be made public. If named finalists, the following information on those applicants selected for interviews will be public. Veteran status, relevant test scores, rank on eligible list, job history, education, training, and work availability. Names of those not selected will remain private. Just a reminder to focus on strengths, not negatives. And opportunities for growth. We're on to you now, Gary, if you're ready.
Yeah, I am ready for you guys.
All right.
So unless any of you need to take a bathroom break before we start in on things, everyone's okay? All right. Okay, the first thing, I sent you some documents today. One of them is a timeline, and I got a bunch of them queued up in front of me that we're going to kind of go through. The timeline, we're currently sitting at April 20th, so we're going to select finalists tonight to the interview and go through that with our first round of interviews for Thursday and Friday. And I will be the one from staff that will be helping with that, along with one of our other people that we bring in to help, a former board member from over in Worthington. She's going to be helping the staff go through their questions. And that's Wendy Schoolmeister. The next thing that I have on the list to my list is we're going to talk a little bit about interviewing. You know, we've done this before when I've called you guys before, but tonight would want to just go through a couple additional items. and some reminders. When we are going to run the interview this way via Zoom, Chris will be asking all the questions, and we'll be going over those later on tonight. You will be then, what we suggest is you turn off your video, just let Chris and the candidate have the back and forth. We'll do the same thing over at the staff comments, or the staff interviews that Wendy will be leading. There's not going to be any time for chit chat necessarily. We're just getting right down to business. So they'll come on. I will be sending them the questions about 10 minutes prior to the interview starting, and they will have that in front of them. So as Chris reads each question, you will be listening for the answer, and then you will have a form that goes along with those questions that you will indicate. You should print this off ahead of time, whether they exceeded with their answer, they met the answer, their answer did meet your criteria, or did not meet it. Then when each interview is done, there'll be, I'll provide you with a link on Wednesday, or maybe first thing Thursday morning, that'll have all this information, all the links in it, and you will go in after each interview and put how you scored that interview. So then once all the interviews are completed, we will consolidate all those answers and bring them back to you so that you can take a look at them. Also, we'll be collecting information from the staff as to what they believe are the strengths and the opportunities for growth for each of the candidates based on how they answered the questions for those for the staff members. We want you to take really good notes. If you sit through 5 of these, 6 of these, you're going to forget what each candidate said. So make sure you take good detailed notes. And once we complete this, then we'll ask that you destroy those notes and get rid of them. Okay? We will concentrate generally on strengths for candidates. And let me give you a quick example on that. We've been running a bunch of these via Zoom recently, and if a board starts, if there's a couple candidates that are the top candidates, and you start having your deliberation about those candidates, and you start to publicly talk about their weaknesses or their opportunities for growth, and you really concentrate on that portion of it, you may have a candidate, as they listen to this public deliberation, say, I'm not so much interested anymore. Or it could be your second candidate if the first one decided not to take the job, and they could say, nah, you kind of ripped on me, I'm really not interested. So be careful with that. If you're not saying a bunch of strengths about a candidate, that speaks volumes, but you're not in the public's mind, tearing them down. So just be cautious of that as we move forward. It's okay to say that they have opportunities to grow in certain areas. You can say, I feel that candidate B has better communication skills than candidate C. That's fine. But I've seen too many board members just kind of go down that negative route, and it'll come back to bite you. And so make sure you don't do that. Remember also that at the end of this interview, the candidate's going to ask you questions that they have for you. At that point, we want all of you to come back on with your audio and your video, and we want you all to participate. It's really important that the candidate sees that you all are engaged. and all of you have different things that are your interests and your skills. When I was on the school board up north, finances was my deal. But my wife's cousin, who was on the board because it's a small town like you guys are, she was all about curriculum. And so when things like that came up, if it was a curriculum, I'd look at her and say, what do you think? Because this isn't really my bailiwick. And when it's finance, every time we got into details on finance, she'd call me after the meeting so I could have another explanation and another lesson on it. So each of you has a skill for your board. And so, Chris, as you're hearing a question, you may say, Lisa, this is kind of up your alley. Why don't you respond to that? Be ready to respond to those questions. And they're going to be tough questions. If you see that a candidate has done their research and really knows a lot of detail about Adrian's school district, that says a lot. It says they're interested. And it shows what kind of character they have. So that last question can tell you a lot of things. Just going through a few other things. Make sure that, with Chris asking all the questions, there won't be this opportunity for you to start coming up with additional follow-up questions. We just don't go there. It's very important that we don't ask certain things. We always want to ask, are you going to move to the school district? You can't ask that. And that keeps coming up. Don't ask it. And so, there's things like that. You can ask clarifying questions. Like they may say, in our implementation of PBIS, we've done this. And you'll say, excuse me, I don't know what PBIS is. Can you explain that to us? And that's fine. A clarifying question is good. But to start going down rabbit holes and asking other detailed questions about something you heard from that one candidate means that you're going to get different information from that candidate than you would from another, and you're opening yourself up for the possibility of asking something you should not ask. Okay? Okay, the next things. When we're done with the first interview, someone is going to be doing reference checks. I don't recall this answer. Who did we decide was going to do the reference checking for the second round?
Chris.
I believe I was nominated for that.
All right, very good. Okay, and I know we're done after the first round interviews, but Chris, as you have questions on that, just call Sandy or I, and we'll walk you through it. So.
Okay.
All right. And we've passed out some information on that thing. Deliberations, when we get to deliberations, just remember, I'll say all these things again before we start deliberating on Friday night, but we're just going to keep it to strengths. And we're going to decide who is the best fit and who we're going to bring back for Adrian. Okay? Do you have any questions on the interview process at all at this point? Hearing none, we'll move on. So I sent you also today a list of who we are going to talk about as far as the candidates. But let me back up. When MSBA does the review of the applications, we have a team of 5, at least 5, if not 6. It'll be a couple staff members and then 3 retired superintendents that work with us on superintendent searches. We actually have probably about 10 retired superintendents that work with us. But for each one, we split it up. And so in each one, we'll have 3 generally. And they'll do some of the background work and some of the pre-interview work for us before we actually get to this point. So as a group, we individually we do have a deliberation to decide who we think we should bring forward as our recommendations for the Adrian School District. Some of these candidates that have applied for your position apply for every position in the state and in other states. And some of these candidates are ones that we would never recommend to bring forward. You're going to have that with any application process. There are a lot of them that we see that, yeah, they could really do this. And we've either worked with them in the past. In my job on a daily basis, most of my contacts all day long are with superintendents. And so I've met a lot of these people and I've worked with them on a daily basis. So we bring that to the table. And we also look at their soft skills and a few other things that we know about these individuals. So that's how we come up with our 5 candidates. And if we don't have consensus among the group, we don't bring that person forward. Tonight, as we go through these, I'm going to read the 5 candidates that we're going to recommend that you bring in for interviews. We also want you, because this is your job, you're making the decision, we want you to ask me about other people on there that caught your eye. And if possible, I'll explain why we didn't recommend that individual. Or if I can't say it because of private data, I'll let you know that we had no consensus, and that means something. That means that we know something, and why we didn't bring that individual forward. If there's someone on the bubble that we had some interest in, well, I'll let you know that. So there has been a time in the past when a candidate that the board knew that didn't have their license yet was close. The board decided to add that individual that we didn't recommend. That individual's in their 2nd contract now, doing a great job. And the reason was we didn't bring him forward is because he had no license at the time. But he was a couple districts down from that school board, and they knew him and they liked him. And so it's turned out just fine. We had to work with him to make sure he got his license before he started work, but we got her done. So, all right, on with the applicants. So the applicants we're going to, that I'm going to talk about tonight, and all these applicants, we're only going to talk about them until we name them based on their alphanumeric identifier, which was also in the information I sent you today. First one I'm going to talk about is candidate B, as in boy. So what we've done is we've had a pre-interview with the candidate. We've also checked with their references, done some background work on them, and we've pulled together some information based on your hiring criteria. And so your hiring criteria, you had 6 points, or 5 points. First, we're going to talk about the experience, and then we'll talk about their school finance, visibility, works cooperatively, delegates authority, honesty, and ethics. Those are your hiring criteria. And so I'm going to read this information to you. I ask that you take some notes on these candidates as we talk, and also refer back to the notes you've already taken on these candidates. You've looked at their applications. So starting with candidate B. Candidate B does hold a Minnesota superintendent license, however, has no superintendent experience. The candidate has pre-K-12 principal and activities director experience. Under knowledge of school finance, the candidate would rely on resources such as business manager, school board, finance committee, school finance division, and MSBA. According to reference, budget would be a new experience for the candidate. However, according to a reference, the budgeting would be a new experience for the candidate. However, the candidate is definitely worth the investment. Under visibility and accessibility, works well with stakeholders. According to references, this candidate puts in time outside of the contract day Candidate fits well in rural settings and is dedicated to family and faith. Candidate works at several school events and public functions. Candidate believes in teamwork and treats staff with respect. Under works cooperatively with the school board. According to references, the candidate comes alongside of staff with plans. Candidate has worked with administrative teams and school board committees and works with groups and individuals to build understanding. Under delegates authority, according to references, candidate steps forward and offers help, works closely with staff and shares information, and much responsibility with colleagues. Candidate believes in teamwork, which are more productive and effective, and the candidate has led several staff initiatives. Under honesty and ethics, words and phrases used to describe the candidate include calm, fact-gathering, communicative, servant leadership, positive attitude, good with the digital world, has finesse and compassion. References noted candidate has exceptional work ethic and a good moral compass and works with integrity. Also reference noted candidate has the work ethic and integrity to perform at a high level. Under provides written administrative procedures, according to references, the candidate utilizes data to inform others and is efficient and understandable in relaying this information. Candidate accomplishes this through written and oral communication. The candidate will listen to others' insight and communicate to inform board members of policies and other professional development and training. That was candidate B. Candidate D. Candidate D holds a Minnesota-issued superintendent license. The candidate has school administration experience as a K-12 principal. Under knowledge and experience in school finance, one reference noted the candidate's experience in personnel management, community education, and oversight of transportation, curriculum, and technology. Under visibility and accessibility, one reference wrote, the candidate is active in the community, visible in the school, and a good communicator. She deals with adversity and handles things when they are not going well, and sets high ethical and performance standards for herself and expects others to perform accordingly. Under working cooperatively with the school board, one reference wrote, candidate D is visible in the community and has a great relationship with the school board. She communicates well with the school board and staff. Under delegates authority, candidate D has delegated authority as a building administrator. She sets high ethical standards for self and expects others to perform accordingly. Is trusted by her employees to do what's best for kids and is not afraid to make the hard decisions. Under honesty and ethics, words and phrases used to describe the candidate include hardworking and disciplined, commitment, creative, self-confident, difference maker, positive influence, and one reference noted the candidate is not content to settle for the status quo. She is willing to take on difficult challenges that need to be addressed and is always looking for ways to improve our schools' performance. Under provides written administrative procedures, the candidate has experience in rural school districts which have exposed him or her to a full range of state and federal laws. That was candidate D. next one is candidate E. This candidate holds a Minnesota issued superintendent and principal license. Candidate is currently in her 7th year as a superintendent in the same district. Prior to this position, the candidate was in an administrative position for 3 years. The candidate has 10 years of administrative experience as superintendent and principal. Under knowledge in school finance and management practices, according to the references, the candidate is very well versed in the area of finance and is passionate about her position as an educational leader overseeing implementation of standards-based grading and enhanced PLC process. One reference stated this candidate holds a strong budget. The candidate has maintained a strong budget and is able to right now be building in addition to their elementary of 4 classrooms just using the unreserved fund balance dollars and still have a strong unreserved fund. Their visibility and accessibility. One reference wrote the candidate is present at many district events and is active in the community. Another reference wrote the community members in the district are very honored to know that she is watching over the needs of the school district. One reference stated, I see him or her actively involved in school activities even when she doesn't have to be at work. She is still in attendance. And it works cooperatively with the school board. One reference wrote, this candidate has a great working relationship with our school board and does a wonderful job of guiding and supporting them also. Another reference wrote, this candidate identifies issues and problem solves with the team to overcome barriers. The candidate maintains confidentiality while effectively communicating important information. Under delegates authority, a reference noted the candidate delegates authority because she has cultivated trusting relationships with everyone they work with. This candidate is very hands-on and holds the administrative team and teachers accountable for tasks they are responsible for. Under honesty and ethics, words and phrases used to describe the candidate include strong leadership, trustworthy, highly motivated, optimistic, ethical decision maker, excellent communicator, an effective listener, a sensitive leader, and welcoming. Under provides written administrative procedures, candidate E has years of experience leading a school district in its compliance with state and federal education regulations. One reference noted the candidate has led the district through multiple public votes, including a successful bond referendum for a classroom and gym addition and an operating levy renewal. The candidate has worked with the board in development of a curriculum cycle. That is candidate E. The next one is candidate F. Candidate F does hold a Minnesota superintendent license. The candidate has experience as superintendent elementary principal as well as a K-12 principal. Under knowledge of school finance, according to a reference, candidate exhibits skills necessary for excellent budget decisions and making the most of limited dollars. The candidate has passed a building levy on the first attempt. The candidate has been involved at the legislative level, working to keep funding for the district. And a reference stated the candidate has learned to watch the budget closely. Under visibility and accessibility, according to references, the candidate is visible with students and others. Candidate holds the door for students every morning, gives them a farewell at the end of the day. The candidate believes visibility and transparency are essential to form relationships. The candidate is visible in the community and involved in several community organizations. The candidate works well with parents, students, and staff. Then works cooperatively with the school board. According to references, the candidate keeps the board well informed using email and text messages. A little concerned about the text messages. Nah, never mind. That was a joke. You can laugh. Okay. All right. The candidate is very good at communication. Candidate stays current with state and national trends and shares those thoughts. One reference noted, the candidate has faith in people and has proven to be fair and consistent when dealing with personnel, the board, and the community. Under delegating authority, according to the reference, the candidate displays a genuine interest in being a team player. Candidate forms committees to help solve issues. According to the reference, the candidate gets employees to work together and share ideas. The candidate is pleasant and agreeable to work with, while displaying a general interest in being a team player for the positive benefit of students, staff, school, and community. The candidate is willing to seek advice before sailing into uncharted territories. Under honesty and ethics, words and phrases used to describe the candidate include passion for education, innovative, collaborative, tech-savvy, strong work ethic, and engaging, finds win-win situations, and makes sound judgments. It provides written administrative procedures. According to references, the candidate prepares feverishly for meetings and events to keep others informed. The candidate has used monthly training sessions to inform the Board of Educational topics and communicates well with the board. The candidate communicates effectively with the board and goes beyond the call of duty. The candidate will research information to present to the board. That was candidate F. And the last one we're going to present tonight is candidate G. Candidate G holds a Minnesota-issued superintendent license. Candidate has school administration experience as a K-12 principal and Title I director. Under knowledge of school finance, one reference noted the candidate is very organized, efficiently uses his time, the time of his team, and understands school finance, and effectively assigns available financial resources to get the best bang for our buck. One reference wrote under visibility and accessibility, the candidate's leadership skills, professionalism, communication skills, personal qualities, and visibility in the community will be an asset to your school. And it works cooperatively with the school board. One reference wrote, candidate G is a numbers and stats person that keeps the school board well informed, which makes it possible for board members to make educated decisions. Under delegates authority, candidate G collaborates well with staff, valuing staff input in an effort to make the best decisions for student growth. Words and phrases under honesty and ethics, words and phrases used to describe the candidate include capable, hardworking, honest, positive, compassionate, ethical character with integrity, extremely good with technology, dependable, detail-oriented, and is well equipped with all the skills necessary to be a successful superintendent of schools. One reference noted the candidate leads with strength, compassion, integrity, and a true vision for education. Under provides written administrative procedures, the candidate has knowledge and experience assisting with developing, updating, and implementing school board policy and procedures as a principal. For examples, candidate G worked with the superintendent to develop policy and procedures relative to early kindergarten admittance and student academic testing. Easy for me to say. Funny. All right, so that's what we have for the 5 candidates that we are recommending you to bring forward for interview. At this time, looking at, we'll pull up one more document here. So we've went through some of the strengths of these candidates who we as a team have brought forth and decided best meet your needs. And we're going to want to deliberate now and talk about these individuals and also answer any questions that you may have. Remember that we have to only talk about the candidate via their Elfin identifier. And at this time, we would suggest that, Chris, you could maybe call on each school board member whether they would like any other information based on other candidates other than the 5 we've talked about.
Yeah, let's work backwards this time. Start with you, Ed.
Lucky me, huh? For candidates that made my list that's not necessarily on this list as a possibility, I'd like to see if you have any more additional information on candidate H.
Candidate H I've worked with numerous times. Candidate H had no consensus to bring forward.
Thank you. I don't have anybody in addition to ask on.
All right, Bob, how about you?
The only other one that I was looking at as well, or different than Ed, was candidate 3.
Jay?
Juliet?
Jake. Sorry, Jake. Sorry.
Just a minute here. Just one sec. Pull up another document here. Once again, it was one that we didn't have any consensus, but I can't personally attest to the individual. Let me just look up something here quickly.
Okay.
It had to do with his or her general lack of administrative experience and lack of Minnesota experience.
Okay.
Gary, one question on that candidate. From reading through maybe can't speak on this, but from reading through the materials, I wasn't certain if they would be able to get a Minnesota license even.
Yeah, on that, if they have their their license in that state, then generally we can get one. But that's probably going to be their biggest problem, is trying to get that taken care of. So it's another, but it was the experience along with that was really holding us back. So.
Okay.
That take care of you, Bob?
Yes, sir.
All right, Lisa.
Candidate E is still under contract until 2021.
That's correct.
You?
It's not an issue, though.
Okay. That's all I had then. So spot on with all the other ones they chose.
All right, Chad.
No, I'm good. Jay was my question, and that was just about his license, and that's been answered. So,
Okay. Les.
Yeah, those were probably my 5 top candidates, but how about candidate K?
Hang on one sec. Candidate K was no consensus again, and it has to do with absolutely no administrative experience.
Okay, that's what I thought probably. Thank you.
I've got 2 I'd actually like to ask you about. First, candidate I, India.
Yep. Candidate I, I've worked with a lot. There was no consensus on this particular one. But candidate I would be considered a bubble candidate for you guys. Has a lot of strong curriculum and financial background. Has been a superintendent and is currently a finalist at another school district.
The other one I was going to ask about was Alpha.
No consensus.
Okay. All right. Sounds like we've got 5 that everybody's on. Candidate C, Charlie withdrew, correct?
That is correct. We would have brought 6. We'd have brought 6 if candidate C would not have withdrawn.
Okay. So we've got 5 here that everybody seems to be in agreement on. So then we are looking for 1 more. Seems like there was some interest in J, Juliet, I, India, there's a K, Kilo. So, any thoughts on those 3? Or if anybody would rather see someone else?
I had interest in H. Ed, did you too, right?
I did based on the information, but I'll take Gary's information he provided. I guess I don't necessarily need or would recommend moving forward based on that information.
And I'll also state that, it's, we're 6 is not necessarily a magical number, but that's another thing that you can decide to do is just go with 5. So if you think someone's a long shot and want to give them an interview, that's fine, but courtesy interviews aren't always the best thing to do either. So.
My own thought, candidate J seemed intriguing. There seemed to be passion there, but as Gary stated, it might be some work to get a license. It might be one worth taking a flyer on.
I guess, Chris, I saw some or had some notes in there that I felt that the candidate Jay could have used some room for improvement in some areas. And the licensure I had some questions. I guess if we were looking at that, I'd be more inclined to go back to H if we were going to offer a 6th candidate, but that's just my opinion.
I'm good with the 5 that we have. I guess I had, some history issues with, some of the others that we've talked about, and lack of positives on some of the things I'm looking for. So I'm good with the 5 that we have. And if we throw another one in there, we might just be wasting everybody's time. But again, just my thoughts.
How about you, Bob?
I guess I'm fine with the 5 as well, especially with candidate J if there would be an issue with licensure. Yeah, I guess, like I say, I think 5 would be good, my opinion.
Okay. Anybody? I guess we haven't heard from you, Chad.
I think I'm okay with the 5 with just going with the 5. I don't feel like we need to add another name. My questions about the others were answered, so I'm good with 5.
All right. Anybody want to put a motion on the table with the alpha indicators?
I'll motion.
Got a motion from Chad for
I will
candidate
E.
Bravo. Well, go ahead.
For candidate B as in Bravo, D as in dog, E as in elephant, F in Frank, and G as in grass.
Could have said Gary.
All right, so we got a motion from Chad. I think I heard a second from Bob. All right,
I'll
Les.
second.
Aye.
Chad.
Aye.
Lisa.
Aye.
Bob.
Aye.
Ed.
Aye.
And the motion to interview those 5 carries. Unanimous. So, Gary, you'll be contacting them?
I'll schedule after, and I'll name them here in just a little bit. But first, what I want to do is talk about the schedule and make sure we're on the same page that way. So I sent you, frankly, I don't remember the last conversation that we've had on scheduling. We had some other ones that were thrown around out there before. So let's take a look at what I included today and what I sent, and some possibilities. So this assumed 6 candidates, but we do 3 on Thursday, 2 on Friday, and then we can start the deliberation earlier and get done earlier on Friday.
I'm going to request that we do 2 on Thursday. Just looking at the forecast, there's a chance of rain Friday.
Farmers. That a boy. All right. Sounds good. All right. So if we do 2 on Thursday, then I assume we want to start later, or do you want to finish earlier?
Start later.
Start later.
Is what I'm thinking. Anybody else chime in if you feel different?
I'm good with whatever. I got nothing going on, so.
Yeah, that's fine. Later's fine.
Okay. Sounds good. So I'll adjust that then for 2 on Thursday, with the board interview starting at 5:15. We call it to order at 5:10. Okay. I need to bring up another document here just to make sure I don't screw up something. And then the staff input interview would start at approximately at 4 o'clock. Is that going to work with you with the staff? Start at 4.
Jolene? We'll take that as a yes.
All
I
right.
would think that would work fine.
Okay.
4 o'clock.
All right. And actually, the second day will probably start. We'll start at 2:45. The way we got it listed there. And generally, the staff input group, we have less questions, and so you usually can get that done in about 45 minutes. And I got to look up your questions again here. Hang on a second. Let me grab that. Yeah, you only have 12 questions, and so you don't necessarily need the full hour. But what you would do then is in the last 15 minutes, if it runs 45 minutes in the last 15 minutes, then you would put your input together. And so, Jolene, I got to make sure I get your email address so I can send you all the contact, the survey form that you'll need to fill out as a group and send back to me so I can present it to the board. So is it Jay Henning? Is that the email address? Okay.
Yeah, J.Henning.
Yep. Okay, I will get that to you. Just write a few more notes here. Okay. So then I will be making those contacts. We got the schedule dealt with. As far as the Zoom meeting invites, generally what we do is we like to have an invite for each candidate, a separate one. So you'll end up having in total 6 meetings scheduled for, not meetings, but 6 Zoom sessions scheduled for Thursday and Friday, just for the board. Then we'll have 5 set up for the staff input. Now, Are you guys do you have enough licenses to handle multiple meetings going on at the same time, or do you have just one license for Zoom?
Zoom is
You're muted.
Zoom is open right now, so we have multiple licenses.
Okay, perfect. Okay, and so then we'll just let that happen from your standpoint. Kate, you're the one that's going to be putting all these together, I assume, for the Zoom meetings, or is someone else doing that?
I can.
Who did this one?
I did this one. I can put it together as long as I got a good email address for them.
All right, I'll get you the email addresses for the 5 candidates.
If I'm not there, does somebody else live stream?
Do we have to live stream these interviews?
You don't want to live stream the interviews because of the possibility that if it's made public that you're being live streamed, the candidate 5 is going to watch candidate 1, 2, 3, and 4's interviews and figure out how to do it. So
how about publishing them afterwards?
That's what we want to do. We want to record them and then just post them.
Okay.
Deliberation can be live streamed. So if you put that one together, as long as, depending on the functionality that Kate's got figured out for live streaming, generally you should be able to just click on the live stream and click on the link and let her fly. So it should be pretty straightforward. Who's ever doing that for that one. As far as the Zoom meetings for the staff input, those are not public meetings, and so we want those as private, going to each one of the 5 candidates, and including Wendy Schoolmeester from our organization. So Wendy will probably read the questions, and then Jolene, in your group, you will then take notes and ask all that, or take notes and then answer. If the candidate has questions for you, you will answer those questions and then submit that information. So, okay. Jolene, I'll send you some more information. I'll show you a sample of the form so that you can play with it a little bit. Okay. All right, so we're set up on the meetings. Then what I'll do is I'll take, once we set up all those invites, I will take and put one email together for you guys on Thursday that will have all those links for each meeting and who you're interviewing. So you don't have to keep going back to your calendar or to different emails, along with other documents, your questions, all those things will come in one email, so you'll have it all and be able to get access to all that information real easily. Okay? All right. Interview questions. We've talked about that in the past. Do you have any other comments on the interview questions? If not, we're just going to roll with them. Like I said, I will email the candidates about 10 minutes prior to the interview the questions so that they have a copy of them so they can read them as you're asking the questions, and then we'll go from there. All right, so now what's next on my list? I think we got it. Now we can just talk about who we're going to interview. So, in no particular order, I got too many documents opened up here. Hang on a sec.
Would you like me to read them, Mike, Gary?
We can. Let me get up here just a sec. Well, we have. I'm gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna read them in any particular order, so we don't have anything to relay back to our comments previously. Dr. Michelle Mortensen, current superintendent over at Renville County. We have this is ridiculous. Bradley Johnson, currently a superintendent up at Benson, Minnesota.
Principal.
I'm sorry. Michael Pagel, who is currently, I believe, a principal over in Fulda. Trouble is that I closed some documents that I don't remember here. Hang on. Molly Schilling, who's a principal over at your neighbor. No, I'm gonna lose the school. Beavers Hill Creek. And the last one on the list is Daniel Ludvigsen, who is a superintendent over in North Dakota, if I remember right. Did I hit that one already?
Yep.
Okay. So I will put together that news release and send it over to you, Renee, with their names and their positions and where they're currently at. I've got that queued up. I'll quickly type that up and get that off to you. We will start with, I'll get you the email once I get the links for all the meetings, and Thursday, Chris will come out of the field and we'll get some interviewing taking place. How does that sound?
Sounds good. Renee, just make sure we change the time on that posting.
Yep. And so I'll put some of that, I'll have that also in that news release, that when the first interview is going to take place. And we'll go from there. Okay. And Chris, Kate, are you going to do the staff Zoom meetings, or who's going to do those? Or is it Jolene, or is it?
I certainly can. I mean, I'm still off. Dang it. I can, or Jolene can. Are you setting up Zooms, Jolene?
I can certainly set them up as long as I get all the names.
Yep. I'll get you all that information, and then you got to set them up for all your staff that are going to be. How many people are going to be in your group?
Not sure. Chris, how many are in the group? Do you remember?
We had 3, if I remember correct.
Okay, very good. All right, so we'll get that over to you, Jolene. I'll deal with you. I'll send you some stuff tomorrow morning, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And we should be good. Any other things for me tonight, guys?
No, I don't believe so.
Well, thanks a lot. I think, we're dealing with some, at this point, some places that are not getting applications because I believe of what's going on. They're afraid to move. They're afraid to do things, and you guys actually had some nice candidates to pick from. And so I think you'll have fun with the interviews. You'll have some people that are going to be really good for you to pick from. And things will keep trucking along in Adrian. I come from a little town of Fertile, Minnesota, which has a big wrestling program, and or used to back in the day when I was around, but about the time I was around. And this whole discussion of wrestling mats, I can't tell you how many times I've been through that discussion. So.
Well, thank you, Gary.
All right. Well, we'll be in touch, and we'll talk to you on Thursday.
Thanks.
Yep.
All right, that was our last agenda item. So I don't know if we remember how to close a meeting without Dave here, but
Well, I'll take his place. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
motion
I'll
by
second
Bob,
that.
seconded by Les, and we'll go around the room. Ed.
Aye.
Bob.
Aye.
Lisa.
I
Chad.
Aye.
Les.
Aye.
And motion carries. We will close the meeting. Thanks, everybody.
Great meeting, guys.
This is going a lot smoother than I was thinking it would go.